trade is very important for growth, and the bank, in fact, has a lot of evidence that it's put together, including in a 2015 flagship report, that shows that trade is very important to addressing poverty alleviation. The first thing we noticed when we looked at the bank's engagement was it's extremely large. So we found a portfolio of about 800 activities if you include advisory and analytic work. And we found financing and expenses of close to $8 billion over the 11-year period we looked at. So this is quite a significant engagement. The evaluation had four major areas of findings, and the first one was on a systematic approach. And there we found two things. One is that countries benefited from more than one type of intervention. And the second thing is countries did better where there was support over time. There are two aspects to our finding about political economy. One is that the nature of trade facilitation reforms can be very political, and it also involves a lot of different actors because there are always going to be some people who find it more interesting to maintain the status quo than to pursue reforms. How do you bring them along? How do you engage them in the process? And in fact, we found the bank does have tools such as stakeholder mapping and public-private consultation to engage stakeholders in the process, and in some cases has used them quite successfully. But we also found they were not systematically used. What we found in the bank interactions with client countries is a very strong emphasis on reducing compliance costs to traders. And that's a very good objective and a very important objective for all the reasons I explained earlier. At the same time, one recognizes that many trade regulations are there for a reason, including law enforcement, including protecting public health and safety and the environment. And what we found was very rarely in the objectives of projects were these other kinds of goals of trade regulations being observed or tracked. So very importantly, a surprising number of the World Bank Group activities, whether it be IFC, World Bank, less so MEGA, used as tracking indicators for progress. The indicators of the World Bank Group, the trading across border indicators of the very famous doing business indicators. Now, another set of indicators generated by the bank, the Logistics Performance Index, also has a good deal of information on trade facilitation. So we found two problems with these important indicator sets generated by the bank. And the two problems are, one, the indicators are in no way integrated, and sometimes they are reflecting on the same areas of policy reform, but can in fact generate different messages because of their different methodologies. And the second thing is that some aspects of them don't track reforms very closely. So our four recommendations map very directly to our four findings, hopefully not surprisingly. The first is that the bank would benefit from a systematic approach in more places. Second was more attention to the political economy of reforms. And here, it's the bank's efforts to identify and mitigate the risks from political economy factors by more systematically using the tools it has, like the two I mentioned, stakeholder mapping and public-private dialogue. Third, more attention to the public policy objectives of trade regulations. And this is by more explicitly setting in the objectives and monitoring through indicators the effects of trade reforms to assure that at the very least we're doing no harm to the public policy objectives, and at best we are preserving or even enhancing those public policy objectives. And lastly, strengthen indicators. And this is just a plea to rationalize our indicators so that they're consistent messages communicated by them, and so that they're more granular and effective metrics of the reform process.